my leisure. Unfortunately, children, most people in the world are afraid of fractions. It's my job to make them your friends. So, you ask, how will we do that? Well, first of all, let's get to know a fraction. What is a fraction? Let's say I've got the fraction 1/3. Let's make sure we know the parts of a fraction. The top part of the fraction is called the Wade.
I knew it. I forgot.
The numerator. And the bottom part of the fraction, as Arnold Schwarzenegger loves to say, I'm the denominator. The denominator. Okay. And then this little guy right here is called the fraction line, or the fraction bar. And what you must remember about these is the bottom number tells you how many equal pieces you're cutting something into. How many equal pieces. And the top number tells you how many of those equal pieces you have. How many you have. Okay. Which is stuff that you've worked with before. This is not earth-shattering stuff here. Now here is an example that uses a fraction. Half of the 18 students in the class are girls. How many girls are in the class? Half, or 1/2, by the way, if it just says half of the 18 students in class are girls. How many girls are there? Question mark. And this is one of those points where I'll tell you, I know you know the answer. That really doesn't matter to me. I don't really care about you knowing the answer. Here is what you will do anytime you're asked in a story problem to find a fraction of something. Okay? One of the things I'll tell you thousands of times is you need to kind of sketch out the story. Okay, and with fraction problems it's really easy because you're going to just make a rectangle. And if you want to make a good rectangle, which I'm sure all of you do, the best way to make a nice looking rectangle, you know, a rectangle is made out of 4 lines. Okay? Most people when they draw a rectangle they kind of do this sort of thing. And it looks like, well, it looks like a 4th or 3rd or 2nd grader drew that. If you want to make a nice rectangle, take your pencil off the paper for every line. So in other words, you do this one down, over, down, over. Look how sharp those corners are. Isn't that crisp and clean? You have learned something in math today that you'll remember for the rest of your life. It just looks a lot nicer. Okay? Now this rectangle will always stand for how much total you have. How many total students do I have? What does this rectangle stand for? It stands for all 18 students. And you don't really have to label it as much as I am, but I'm going to just label this one. That box stands for all 18 students. And then, if you think about what fraction we have, what fraction do we have? 1/2. Well, the next thing you'll do is, remember I said the bottom tells you how many equal pieces you cut that into? So you're going to take your rectangle and cut it into half. 2 equal pieces. Now if I have 18, and I cut it in half, which is dividing by 2, each piece is going to be worth 9. So I know that 1/2 of things is girls, so I know there are 9 girls. And since you don't really have a choice of another thing, you know the other 9 would have to be boys. And that's kind of what I need to see when you get to a fraction story problem. And they'll get harder. Maybe we should try a harder one. 1/10 of the 30 students finished early. Let's do that right here. 1/10 of the students finished early. How many finished early? Okay. draw that in such a small little box there. So if I'm doing this story problem out, I do the same thing. I draw my nice rectangle because I learned how to draw it from my teacher just 30 seconds ago. What does that big rectangle stand for? How many total of something do I have? I have, what happened to my number? Didn't I put 30 up there?
No.
1/10 of the 30 students, I'll give that to you now, finished early. So this box stands for 30 students. And I want to know what 1/10 of it is. So what's going to be my next step? I'm going to take that rectangle and cut it into how many equal pieces? 10, because that's what the bottom of a fraction tells you, which might get kind of tough for you, but what would be a good strategy to cut that into 10 equal pieces? Should I just start drawing lines willy-nilly? Because if I did that, I could end up with this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, uh-oh, I gotta get 4 more, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it doesn't look out very good. What would be a better way to do that? Somebody? Oh boy. Oh, here, you'll learn something, another thing new today. You know that half of 10 is 5, so you could cut this box in half and know that you've got to get 5 pieces in each one of those. That at least gives you a little bit better of an idea how big the boxes will be. So there's half, and then each one of those is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ain't that handy? So then the question is, I cut my 30 into 10 equal pieces, and you need to do this. If you take 30 and cut it into 10 equal pieces, each piece is worth, by the way, on your homework paper, you've already got nice little boxes as guides to draw your rectangles with, so you should use them. If I take 30 divided by 10, anybody going once, going twice, going 3 times? 30 divided by 10, Bryce?
3.
Right. So every one of these boxes is going to be 3. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. They're all labeled to just, you know, each
Oh.
student has their name on it.
That's amazing. Thank you. All right, and then I only want 1/10 of them, so what is 1/10 of 30? If I just take one of these 10 pieces, 3. 3. So how many students finished early?
3.
3 finished early. It's kind of handy, isn't it? Yes. And then one last problem. Open up your books to page 129, please. 129. Investigation number 2. And we're going to do a problem together, and then I know you're wondering why you brought scissors and glue. We'll get to that point right up here. Look at page 129. Please read it to yourself as I read it aloud. I'm just kidding. You don't want to read it aloud. How appropriate at this time of year. There were 20 pumpkins in the garden. 1/4 of the pumpkins were too small, 1/10 of the pumpkins too large, 1/2 the pumpkins were just the right size. The rest of the pumpkins were not yet ripe. How many of the pumpkins were too small? Well, before you answer that question, and I know you probably know the answer, what are we going to do, Brant?
Use a fraction.
Use the who?
Fraction.
And how do we use a fraction? We are going to? Carolyn? What did we do in the last 2 problems we did? Thank you very much. We are going to draw a rectangle for that first part, that rectangle. I should use orange. Is this orange? This is red, isn't it?
That's right.
What does that rectangle stand for? How many pumpkins do I have? 20. All right, there's my 20 pumpkins. The first part A says how many were too small. Well, what fraction of my pumpkins were too small? 1/4. So how many pieces do I have to cut 20 into? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I cut 20 into 4, Wade, what is each piece worth?
5.
Thank you. So there's my answer to the first one. 5 were too small. The second one says, how many were too large? Well, you can't use the one we already used because this is a whole different fraction. Still 20 pumpkins. What fraction were too large?
1/10.
1/10, so I got to cut this into 10 equal pieces. Cut it into 5 there. 1, 2, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you take 20 and cut it into 10 equal pieces each piece, Carter is worth 20 divided by 10.
10,
20 divided by 10 is
2.
2, so each piece is worth 2. So you have 1/10, so 2 of them were too what? Large? Is that what it said? Perfect. Then it goes on to say for number 3, how many pumpkins were just the right size? I still have my 20 pumpkins. What fraction is just the right size? What did it say? 1/5? I have to do this all by myself. 1/2 were just the right size. So if I take 20 and cut it in half, it is
10.
10. So I know 10 were just the right size. How in the world am I going to figure out how many pumpkins for number 4 were not yet right? It doesn't tell me a fraction there. Faith?
So you add up the fractions and
Right, I add up the number of pumpkins I already talked about. I know that 5 plus 2 plus 10, 17 were either just right, too large, or too small. So some of them, how many must not be right yet? Right?
3.
Yeah, because you take away that 17. 3 were just not ready. Good, perfect, perfect, perfect.